that in policies, as well as areas relevant to the digital payments that are needed to basically empower such digitalization in the market. Now that's from the overall infrastructure perspective, but if you go to the side of the big businesses, and let's say large companies or medium companies in the sector of tourism, then there are programs around the world to help in digitalization, in the sense that you can come to these businesses and suggest to them, based on global practices, what are the digitalization options and how these are going to increase your productivity and efficiency, and then give them technical assistance even to make sure it's happening, or take innovative routes if you don't have something off the shelf, to create new business models to cater to their needs. So I would say it's overall infrastructure. It has parts relevant to supply, which is basically, as a user, as an SME in this sector, you need to understand what to use in terms of digitalization and how. And in terms of demand also, to boost the supply, you need to create additional opportunities for digital activities in your demand side of the framework.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Noor, yeah.
Okay. For the first question, الإضافة على السؤال الأول، احنا برضو في شراكة بين الصندوق الصناعي ومدن، هيئة المدن الصناعية اللي وقعناها في يناير وقت إطلاق برنامج ندلب لأتمتة 100 مصنع. فبعض الأشياء اللي احنا قاعدين نحاول نسويها المشاركة مع بعض الجهات الخاصة لدعم الأتمتة ورفع مستوى المصانع لنستطيع رفع إنتاجيتها. فهذه واحدة من المبادرات، وإن شاء الله إذا قدرنا نسوي 100 مصنع. عندنا برضو البرنامج اللي تكلمت عنه بشكل سريع، برنامج تنافسية، فكرته إنه نقدم استشارات للمصانع وتكون عن طريق الشركات اللي تسوي الأتمتة، والاستشارات هذه تكون مجانية، استشارة أولية، وإذا وافق المصنع عليها فنسوي استشارة اللي تكون بمثلا عروض للعملاء الصندوق، وإحنا نمول الأتمتة أو رفع الإنتاجية. فهذا واحدة من الأشياء.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll take an attempt at question number 2, but in some ways it will also address my views on question number 1. It's a very strong view, so I'm going to say this with some amount of qualification. I think every 30, 40 years on average, business models undergo changes. And that is the time in life for first generation entrepreneurs who are going to become tomorrow's corporations to be born. It's really up to entrepreneurs to find that opportunity, to seize it with both their hands and use what has always been considered their weakness as their biggest strength. By which I mean, and by the way, if any of us looked at the Forbes article which talks about what are going to be the emerging corporations in 10 years and 20 years from now, none of the larger organizations, whether it is the GE of the world, etc. from the past, figure over there. Many of them have actually slipped out completely as well. So this is the time, and entrepreneurs who really can spot that opportunity, there couldn't be a better time. Having said that, the way to really do that is to use your resourcefulness in terms of the size, your agility as a small organization to be able to do things, and not the biggest advantages that small businesses have is there is absolutely no legacy. If a corporation today of a mammoth size has to digitize their operations, it's almost a decade-long program for them with almost half the organizational resources thrown in, many of whom are not necessarily best qualified to lead the digitization effort. So when it comes to saying that supply chain automation will require a very large size thinking capacity resources, that's not necessarily the case. Also, we live in times where resources have become much more easily available and have been democratized and socialized much better than before. Services on the cloud allow you to do things that were unthinkable of in the past. Access to finance is much better than ever before. As long as you have an idea, you have a good business model, and you have the ability, both in terms of your own capacity as well as your background and experience, to be able to tap into that area. I think this is a time for new generation solutions to come out, and no better time than doing that. And supply chain is absolutely the best place to go in with increasing digitization both of processes and procedures, there is great value in being able to create those solutions, look at the right components that can be automated within the components that have been done in the old-fashioned way, and create a new business model. I think supply chain is the biggest opportunity, and you do not require resources like in the past to be able to get into that space and be successful and even dominate that space. The biggest amount of disintermediation we have ever seen in businesses has happened in the last couple of years, and I think we have another maybe 5-6 years or a decade within which this will flourish yet again. Great time for small businesses to come into areas like this and look at it from a completely new perspective.
Thank you very much, Sam.
I'll take the question of the anonymous.
I think you should. I think it's better because احنا تركيزنا or our focus is more on industrial, so I think he's more
Okay,
equipped
go
to
ahead.
answer the tourism question.
Go on.
So I'll take the question of the anonymous talking about the hiking and what's the plan in Saudi Arabia. So looking into some of the hiking experiences around the world, analysis provided by the Adventure Tourism Association as well as Georgetown Center on Tourism, you would see that adventure tourism has become very big around the world, and it's actually one of the largest growing segments in tourism globally. And if you look at it, it has a lot of segments under that, and in the Arab world, a few countries have now started to work on including itineraries relevant to adventure tourism in their plans. You can see some of them in Lebanon, Mountain Trail, you have Jordan Trail, you have Abraham Path, and in Saudi Arabia there is an effort also underway. So I would zoom in here and say that in Saudi Arabia there has been a cooperation between the World Bank and the Saudi Commission on Tourism and Heritage, SCTH, where basically we have done from the World Bank side an analysis for the different walking trails across the kingdom, and some of them are very ancient, as you know, on the western coast of Saudi Arabia, and basically started to see, based on a specific criteria, what are the ones that would make sense to start with for touristic attractions. And we went down to start working in an area of Asir, where basically we started working on the route or the trail that starts from the top of the Jabal Sauda or Sauda mountain all the way down to Jazirat Kudumbul or Kudumbul Island. And basically we started even going narrower in that offering by looking at the very small segment of 80 kilometers from Abha to Rijal Alma, and see what can we offer there to turn this into a touristic hiking destination. And we've been doing this for the last, I would say, year and a half, where we've done some work around the soft infrastructure, about putting the guides in place, around getting the community engaged, around doing some safety training for the first aid and guides around that area, and also discussing the promotion activities that should kick in, and connecting some of these community leaders with tour operators in the kingdom so that more operators and guides are interested in that trail. So the thinking is that we should be able this summer to actually start the first walking trail or open it somehow, and it's there in the nature, but having some attention to it would take place, I would say, this summer, and that's the 80 kilometer segment. So how can you benefit from that? And I think that's the question. Since there's a plan in the kingdom and the idea is to replicate and go bigger over a number of trails, then there has to be a collaborative effort, I would say, between entities like Munshaat, SCTH, and others who are working in this domain, and making sure that we really identified what are the business opportunity, and we did that already, and then putting incentive packages for SMEs to come in and start offering these businesses, and be innovative also in the ideas of connecting communities to businesses to run these services. There's a lot of potential in the west of Saudi Arabia for walking trails, and I think it's a big add to the itinerary of visitors that Saudi Arabia should take on seriously moving forward, and they are starting big steps in that direction.
Thank you very much. Samir and Ali, if I could ask you to have a look at the new questions that emerge while Noor is presenting the views on SDIF.
اوكي. السؤال اللي بجاوبه هو عن كيف ممكن للصندوق الصناعي دعم التوظيف في المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. طبعا توليد الوظائف هدف من أهداف برامج الرؤية أو هدف من أهداف برنامج ننتج اللي إحنا ممكن المالي الرئيس له. وأيضا هدف يعني لهيئة المحتوى المحلي. فبعض الأشياء اللي إحنا سويناها، واحدة من الأشياء اللي سويناها هو تغيير نموذج الطلب ليتضمن المتطلبات المحتوى المحلي، ومنها طبعا هي توليد الوظائف. شيء ثاني احنا دائما شغالين يعني نحاول التعاون مع هيئة المحتوى المحلي، نشوف ايش الافكار الجديدة او الطرق اللي ممكن ان ندعم فيها. ثالث شيء ابغى اقول انه اذا احد عنده افكار فاحنا دائما عندنا يعني استعداد نسمع ونطبق. كثير من الاشياء اللي سويناها السنة الماضية في الاستراتيجية حقتنا اتوقع ان جزء كبير من النجاح فيها كان دائما مشاركتها مع الجهات الاخرى ومع القطاع الخاص، ودائما كنا قاعدين نغير، ما عندنا اي مشكله انه يعني نسمع من غيرنا. شيء ثاني يمكن سويناه احنا او قاعدين نحاول ان نسويه هو التركيز الدائم اللي الصندوق عنده على تنميه القدرات. فزي ما احنا دائما يعني نعمل على بناء قدرات موظفينا وموظفاتنا، ايضا قاعدين نحاول انه من خلال ورش قاعدين نسويها كيف تبدا مشروعك الصناعي، دعم رواد الاعمال بتوعيتهم او تدريبهم على نجاح مشاريعهم التي ان شاء الله ستؤدي الى خلق الكثير من الوظائف.
Thank you very much.
عفوا.
Ali, would you like to take up one of the questions? How can we motivate the tourism business in KSA by SME financing? Do you feel that you provided enough information on that? And no, on the first one, please, on the first one, on Kafalah. Yes, go ahead, Sami.
I'll try and attempt that one. Firstly, I think the fact that Kafalah has been able to bring a lot of decision makers together in one room itself goes to show the strength and the power of what you're already doing. But I think there is much more that can be done. Number one, I think, is what you are mandated to do. And I think you're doing a great job of that, but that needs to be almost taken for granted. You will keep raising the bar and doing more, achieving in shorter periods of time with greater success, etc. But leaving that aside, I think as an organization that is trying to fuel the economy, trying to fuel the opportunity for small and medium enterprises, I think you can play a significant role in creating the right conducive environment. The one thing that I have as critique of industry, including myself in the many decades I spent on the other side, was that everyone is trying to offer a service to the small business. Very few organizations have gone into the head of the small business and said, what all are they worrying about today? What are they worrying about tomorrow? Sometimes it's about survival, sometimes it's about other things. How do we provide them economies? How do we provide them efficiencies? And I think in yesterday evening's presentation, where it talked about a Saudi ecosystem, I think the answer lies really over there. If an ecosystem can be created for small businesses and every agency comes in and supports that activity of the ecosystem, and Kafalah can play a very big role in doing that. Embed the solutions, give the peace of mind to lenders and others, as well as to small businesses to not think small, but dream big. As long as there is a staged approach to that, I think that's the biggest role that Kafalah could be playing. I speak from experience because we are an ecosystem. In fact, everything that was presented yesterday, our solution already has and more. And we are available, of course, to offer it as co-branded or white-labeled solutions. We are doing it with governments and happy to do that. But when an ecosystem has been built, every agency, every private sector player, and every institution, especially lending and enabling institutions, need to wholeheartedly participate in that so that a wider mass of people can gain from that. So I would really take sidestep the question by saying you're already doing what you're doing. What needs to be done is much more in widening the horizon and allowing for Kafalah to be able to play a huge enabler role to many more SMEs than who knock on your door directly or indirectly.
I'd like to add on what to do on Kafalah in tourism. I think, Kafalah is doing great. I agree with that. But there could be also sector specialization. And in that sense, a lot of the literature and experiences are telling that if you have the financial service coupled with the non-financial service, and specially tailored to the needs that were revealed based on your assessment, then that would multiply the effect and make it more potentially successful. So I would say you can, instead of waiting for them to come to you, then take the proactivity and probably design a tourism program that would have a number of non-financial services that are relevant to tourism, and your partial credit guarantee scheme, which will authorize banks to give support to the ones that you have cleared, or following a portfolio approach, or whatever you're suggesting next. So that's in a natural growth pattern. If you want to go a bit more innovative, you can also consider investing or co-investing in some of these innovative business models that you know also based on your assessment these are needed, but of course making sure that the private sector is at the lead in that case. And we've seen an evolution process that happened in Lebanon with Kafalah, basically, by moving from the partial credit guarantee to also putting investments in funds or accelerating programs that are investing in like private businesses.
أنا بجاوب على السؤال حق سلاسل الإمداد. شكلك كان عندك سؤال.
Sorry, just I apologize for intersection. Sorry. Is this working?
أي.
Yep. Okay. I will just highlight a little bit on the tourism, if you allow me, just a second. In terms of the tourism, especially, we have a very successful story in Kafalah, if I can say it, say it as a successful story. In 2017, tourism industry, and that's 2017, was ranked number 8 activity in Kafalah, within Kafalah. Now it's jumped to number 4 in closing 2018. We used to have only 50 SME getting the advantages from Kafalah. 2018, we jumped to 151 SME. The secret of the game is that the tourism industry or tourism authority, and we spoke to them, and we put them as a partner. We found that they have a fund, but that fund, they don't have the appropriate credit knowledge. So what we did, we took part of this fund, we put it as a part of fund of Kafalah, and we increased the leveraging to 9 times. So the value of Riyal of that fund become 9 Riyal. So we took a good money, and that increased 9 times, and we give it an access to the tourism industry, and that's how it increased, and that's only within a quarter. So now it's becoming more and more attractive for the tourism. And what we have a specific program which goes to 15 million Saudi Riyal with 90% coverage ratio and a very minimum administration fee. Thank you.
I think there's a specific question on how a large corporation may have been able to digitize their value chain and help small businesses. So taking that question, I think the example I would give is of a large bank in India called ICICI Bank. And when they had their objective of dealing with small businesses in asset products, which is lending to them, as well as liability products, which is driving greater deposit accounts. Now, our suggestion to them was not think from the bank's point of view, but to think from the small businesses' point of view. And when it came to the liability accounts solution, it was recognized that small businesses were sort of having multiple bank accounts, not consolidating their positions in one place, not being able to leverage that fully. And the solution came in a completely different angle, which was to allow small businesses, instead of running Excels, etc., for their salary accounts, to have a payroll solution. The payroll solution meant that the entire receivables had to come into one single account from where salaries were paid. Individual employees were encouraged to create salary accounts in the bank, and as those salary accounts are getting created, employees can get a line of credit against the average salary they're getting. the company can start seeing the receivables that the bank is able to view now and be able to offer them a line of credit. Now, if you look at the value chain component over here, it's really salary accounts leading to a deposit account, leading to receivables, getting receivable financing that comes from there, employee salaries being paid out of there, employees being able to get lines of credit. So you've had so many multiple touch points, besides of course making the small business more efficient, showing them ways in which they can collect better, how they can leverage their positions and manage their cash flows better. All of this is possible in today's world and wasn't possible in the past. The same approach when it comes to the traditional banking principles, old-fashioned banking delivered digitally. Now, every small business really banks with a bank in their neighborhood. And when you look at the neighborhood bank, if the neighborhood bank can help you digitize, create your e-commerce stores and start also supplementing what you're doing in the real world store, example, the bank now has a lot of information about the small business that comes directly from source. You don't need to appoint an auditor to go and check what the stocks are, what the movement is, what the sales are. Once again, you can reverse the cycle. But the thinking really has to come by addressing the value chain, not from the bank's point of view, but from the small business's point of view. And once you do that, you know exactly where banking products and services fit in, and then you have a much more seamless story. The cost of doing business with small businesses can come down, the revenues can grow, and most important, you will have a successful, prosperous small business that will bank with you and remember you as a bank that actually helped them grow their business rather than the one who lent at the lowest rate at that point in time.
Thank you very much. And is there any issue that any of the panelists would like to address before I come to closure to the session?
Did you want me to answer the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. كان في سؤال عن دعم سلاسل الإمداد وكيفية دعم رواد الأعمال. فبشكل سريع عشان الوقت بس، طبعا واحد من البرامج اللي عندنا هو كان برنامج توطين، اللي هو التعاون مع الشركات الكبيرة زي أرامكو وسابك وشركة الكهرباء ومعادن. وفكرته أن معرفة الاحتياجات أو الطلب على بعض هذه الاحتياجات للشركات مما يمثل فرص استثمارية لرواد الأعمال، عن طريق دعم سلاسل الإمداد وتوجيههم إلى هذه القطاعات اللي هي توجه الدولة، اللي طبعا هي موجودة كلها على صفحة البرنامج أيضا. فاللي سويناه أنه إذا كان في تركيز على هذه البرامج أو هذه الفرص، فنعطي مثلا إحنا فترة سماح أطول، مدة سداد أطول، والطلب يتم بطريقة أسرع. فهذه طريقة بسيطة بس عن كيف نقدر ندعم سلاسل الإمداد والفرص الاستثمارية لرواد الأعمال.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much the audience present here. I would like to invite our panelists to do a very, very little exercise, 10 seconds each. And this is the question for you. This is an audience that comes from very diverse institutions. And now they are facing reforms, they are facing actions, and they are being asked to move by the highest decision-making level in this country. And they came to this conference and they heard a lot of people here. I will invite you to tell them, how would you like them to remember you by mentioning 2 action words out of this interaction that you had that they would like to bring, or they could bring with their memories. I'll give an example. I am a moderator, but at the same time, in my daily business, I see all of your agencies moving in all sorts of directions, vertically, horizontally, with many multiple demands, some of which you have to attend at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I am a passive recipient of that in the email account that I have. I have 2 words that I would like you to remember me with out of this session. The first one is prioritize. The second one is moderate. Among all these multiple demands, the real challenge that you will probably face is to be able to prioritize and make decisions on what is important now and what is important next. And once you make those decisions, moderate. I moderated here a variety of panelists, but also a variety of questions. Moderate basically means to be able to focus on those priorities that are really more important. Prioritize and moderate. Please carry these words from me.
2 words?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say them in English and in Arabic so it's clear. Collaboration, تعاون, or development, تنمية.
I'd say partner as well as, Embrace change, because I think that's really where the opportunity lies. Embrace change and partner.
I would say great leadership and also inclusive growth.
Thank you very much. With this, I would like to close the session.
شكرا جزيلا لرئيس الجلسة والمتحدثين، وأدعو الآن السيد همام من أجل تكريم المتحدثين ورئيس الجلسة. إذن أيها السيدات والسادة الكرام، ندعوكم أيضا للانضمام إلينا الآن في هذه الجلسة الرابعة والأخيرة من جلسات هذا اليوم والمؤتمر، التي تأتي بعنوان الخدمات غير المالية للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. وسيدير هذه الجلسة مشكورة السيدة نبيلة عساف، مدير تنمية القطاع الخاص والقطاع المالي في البنك الدولي. Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting our final session in this conference titled Non-Financial Services for SMEs, moderated by Nabila Asaf, Practice Manager, World Bank. أدعو المتحدثين إلى المنصة مشكورين. I'd like to invite the speakers and the panelists and the moderator to the stage, please. Mic is yours. It's not working. ممكن نشغل المايك للبانelists لو سمحت.
Hello? Here we go. Well, it's our great honor to be the last session. And we're very happy to see so many people in attendance on this important session that's complementary to many of the topics that have been discussed over the past couple of days. Calling it non-financial services, I feel, maybe we need a better name for this, but in terms of supporting firm capabilities in a way that's complementary to financing. As we all know, finance is not enough. And the technical capabilities of those firms, their management capabilities, their ability to access markets, their ability to manage their finances, their resources is extremely important. And we want to use this session to talk about, and with some of the people who work in this area, to talk about how those services are provided successfully, what lessons we can learn from your deep experience on the topic. And we have an interesting panel, actually, that covers different life stages of a firm. So we have people who work with startups, and we also have people who work with SMEs. So I'm actually going to start not quite in the order that you're seated, frankly, because I want to start at the earliest stage of enterprises with those who work in the incubation space. So I wanted to speak actually first with Mr. Nawaf Sahab, who is the CEO of Badr, an incubator program. And given your long experience in Saudi Arabia, which I understand has been running incubator programs for nearly a decade, if I'm not mistaken, and I hope you'll give us an overview. What has been your experience in terms of the importance of these kinds of services, non-financial services, and developing firm capabilities at the incubation stage? What's been successful? What's been less successful? What kind of lessons can we learn at the very earliest stage of a startup's development?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for inviting me for this great panel. So about answering the question of how important of non-financial service from my perspective in incubation at Badr program. So Badr program now is running for almost more than 10 years. The non-financial service, it can vary. So the most sophisticated non-financial service is to provide, in my view, is the business development service, validation of business model, and we can say another kind of non-financial service to provide internet or space. So all of that in between is non-financial service in the incubators or incubation industry. It's very important for the startups. It's help. It provides them this platform, the credibility actually. So the importance of non-financial service is related to credibility of the platform itself. As stronger as the platform gets credibility from the community and from the government agency, it will result in high impact result for the startups itself. So the question is, what non-financial services that we provide? As I said, I think the business development and validation of the market, and access to market and community, access to community, HR support, access to university student, access to master degree student to work on those startups. This is a great non-financial services that is appreciated by the startup and entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. So at the very earliest stage when we're talking about incubation, understandably your focus is on validating that business plan, making sure that they actually have the right kind of idea and how to actually proceed. Now, Dima Yahya, Chief of MISC Innovation, I understand also the founder of Women's Spark, so that's also an interesting angle. So you work on accelerator programs, if I understand correctly. So where do you see those kinds of services evolving during the acceleration stage? What's important for startups during an acceleration period? What kind of services are needed, and what have you learned by providing those kinds of services through your accelerator programs?
Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, first, for having us here. It's been quite, this is now, we're living in a very aspiring time. A very exciting time, especially for youth and entrepreneurs. Not only in Saudi, but the world globally is depending on the raising economy of startups and small and medium businesses. And the success factor, of any startup differs from financial and non-financial as well. And if you allow me to go a step before acceleration, which I see is very, very important, and I think that it is a very important factor, which is culture and mindsets. And this is where financial services cannot provide such change, where government alone cannot provide all that change, where private sector cannot provide that change. It's an ecosystem. And for that ecosystem to succeed, we have to breathe, eat, and dream about ideation and coming up with solutions for challenges that we live. And here is where the spark of startups start. So I think the most important thing where non-financial contribution is important, which is the change of the ecosystem, and this is and the change of the culture, and this is what we are trying to do in the non-financial sector, which is the NGOs as well as the government as well, which is providing after-school activities that look at ideation and providing critical problem-solving, analytical thinking, and the 21st century skills for our youth, as well as mentorship and guidance and providing the right value chain for our startups, which is non-financial, and giving them the support on what are the right opportunities. Going back to the acceleration program. Now, the first thing that we have learned is that the success of this ecosystem, we cannot work in silo. So it's all about collaboration. It's all about moving from the egocentric approach
to the eco-centric approach. And I think the success that we recently had with the acceleration program is because all parties of the ecosystem was involved, from the government, from private sector, which is our partners in delivering that acceleration program, 500 startups, and from the NGO, which is MISC, that is providing the facilitation, the platform, the mentorship, and the guidance and the opportunity as well.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's a great perspective to take us out of not just services provided directly to the firm, but also looking at what needs to be done in the broader ecosystem. Now, I wanted to move to Ahmed Jabbarin, who's the investment manager for 500 startups. So you're a VC fund, a different part of the ecosystem. You work very closely, actually, with accelerators such as MISC International. Let's pose the question maybe from a different perspective of, as a VC fund, what kind of capabilities are you looking for in a startup? And what is it that you feel is most important that needs to be developed and supported? And using Dima's approach, not just in the startup, but broadly, what are you looking for in an ecosystem that you feel is vibrant and can produce capable entrepreneurs?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting me. When we're looking at the ecosystem today and the different VCs in the ecosystem, we're a mission-driven VC. So we're a mission-driven VC, and what that means is basically we back the world's most talented entrepreneurs, and we back them financially, and we believe to get financial returns, we need to back them also in other ways. And we're driven by the financial returns. So entrepreneurs, when you look at them, they have two things that matter to them: time and money. And if you can save them time or give them money, then basically you've helped them succeed. So we give them some financial help, but we focus a lot on how they spend their time and also that money. Because we've seen a lot of stories where the entrepreneur has raised a lot of money, but they couldn't spend it efficiently. And when they don't spend it efficiently, that money is as good as gone. It's gone down the drain. So how do you support the entrepreneurs in such cases? When you're looking at that way, you have to understand where they are in the stage of, or the lifetime of the company. The company at the early stage would probably need more help ideating and understanding where they are and validating their hypotheses. What usually happens is someone has had an idea, and then that idea has to be validated by the market. If you're looking at a seed stage company, which means a company that has launched the product, it's within the ecosystem today, they need more help figuring out the marketing, and they need more help. The mic is down.
I know.
Yeah.
So very close to the mic.
So if you look at that, in that case, the seed stage company needs more help finding out how to efficiently start spending that capital in terms of sales, in terms of marketing, in terms of all the other aspects of running a company. And then you look at later stage companies in Series A and Series B, when the company is no longer a startup, it's becoming a real company, it's generating real income, then they need you to open the Rolodex and start making introductions. These introductions are so valuable because they can spend so much time and getting nothing if you don't connect them with the right people. Connecting them with the right people who can help them reach the right objective at the right time will save immense amount of time. And time, as we all know, is money. So going back, you have to understand what do they need and deliver the value that they need at the stage that they need it to make sure that these companies spend their time and money wisely.
Thanks so much, Ahmed. That's a great segue to Albert. So Albert Morales is the product manager at Strands. Is it Strands or Strands.com?
Strands.
Strands, okay. So, and you work with, you're a fintech that provides a platform to deliver both banking and non-banking services to SMEs. And Ahmed, you talked a little bit more about the different kinds of needs and services and capabilities that firms need to develop over their life cycle, coming to cost management, accounting, marketing, sales, and the sort of things that firms as they grow continue to need. So Albert, can you tell us something about Strand's approach and what you've learned from what kind of services are most important and in demand, and in terms of your bank clients, what they communicate to you are the most important non-banking services that SMEs need in order to succeed.
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, thank you to the all Kafalah organization for such an insightful event. It's really, really appreciated. Regarding on that question, for those of you who doesn't know what Strands does or who we are quite a grown-up startup already. We are delivering financial technology solutions, in that case for retail and for SME customers, but we deliver it through banking partners. We are not having direct connection to the SMEs, but we thought like the best way to scale was partnering with banks worldwide and globally, currently with more than 600 financial institutions in the world, because that's the way we have to reach those end customers faster and provide them assistance through the existing banking channels. So what we do is we enhance and we leverage all the data that the bank has from its SME customers. So you can imagine all the transactional data, all the history on the products that they use or they have. We enrich that data. We collect external data sources as well in order to comply with two main purposes. First of all, provide non-financial solutions to the SMEs, and what this means is making the bank to become, instead of just a financial partner for the SME, to become a truly business partner. As mentioned here, all the work that is performed into accelerators for startups, we want that exact very same approach of having a day-to-day relationship with someone who understands how your business is and provides them assistance, not only about your cash flow, but how can you grow your sales, etc. We think that the bank is the right partner in that position to provide this service to the SMEs because of the amount of data that they have from their existing customers. And by partnering with Strands, we are leveraging this data and providing solutions for SMEs that are going beyond the mere financial or controlling their cash flow. And from the bank point of view, and it's a topic that was mentioned yesterday, it was really important. We help the bank to not only comply with the KYC, but we're moving from the KYC in order to comply with the regulations to understand your customer. And if you understand your customer, then you can lend more, but lend smarter, which is more important. So you will be increasing the lending that you're offering, the liquidity you're offering to the whole ecosystem, much smarter even with lower rates, because the risk will be reduced almost to not to zero. That would be ideal, but thanks to that, the leveraging this data that we have within the bank and with external sources such accounting packages, we are able to perform that understanding of the business.
Thanks so much, Albert. So taking a step back, I mean, something that you said and something Albert and Ahmed, both of you said, is along the theme of these services are necessary to use financing, whether it's equity financing or whether it's lending, to use it efficiently and to use it effectively. So in fact, the services are not only just a complement, but absolutely essential, really, to the success of either startups or more established firms. So one question that I think is really relevant to the attendees here is also what is the role of government agencies in this space? So, Kafalah is government agency providing, enabling on the finance side. Munshaat enables also on business services. So let's talk a little bit about what is the role of public agencies in these services. In terms of incubation or accelerator services, in terms of providing business development services, in terms of the ecosystem, Dima, as you brought up, and so in all of your areas, actually. So where do you see the role of the public sector, of government institutions, and focusing to the extent possible on Saudi Arabia? Yeah. Where do you see that role? What's working, what's not working so well, and where do we need to see a different approach?
Well, I think we're overwhelming the government and private sector. I think we're relying on the private sector a lot. Again, I truly believe that it's an ecosystem. A government has a role, private sector has a role, and non-profit has a role as well. When it comes to the government, I do truly believe that the government is an enabler. It's very hard for them to become an enabler and an executor, and it's hard to control all that ecosystem. But a very powerful enabler for that ecosystem to strive and to stimulate it. I think it's very, very important on the government right now to focus on the policies and regulations to ease business for the startups, to provide the IP roles, policies and regulations as well. Things that I think we have been consumed by incubation and acceleration and upskilling, that the demand that we need right now from the government is when it comes to the policy and regulations. Also the market share opportunity. The startups are dying because they are competing with the government. We have a lot of government-owned companies, and I think that providing some regulations by providing a percentage for small and medium businesses to have access to market share and government is very important. So I think the role is very big, but we cannot depend on only the government, and we should be supporting, not demanding.
So you're advocating for an enabling role,
Yes.
in terms of leveling the playing field, putting the right kind of regulations in place. Nawaf, I understand from all the panelists there was a consensus that you had the longest experience in Saudi Arabia on this. What is your view on this? Where do you see the role of the government? Dima is advocating more for an enabling role, but not necessarily getting too involved up front in actually direct provision of services. How do you see it?
Well, under Badr umbrella, we created something new. Our direction now is to support communities, the tech communities. We have now around 350 startups. However, we have 77 communities. So our role is to deliver the voice of those communities actually. For example, we have a community now is about logistics, which consists of 10 startups within Badr. So, for example, in this industry, there is new rules and regulation impacted heavily the startups that we have under our rules. So, what we're trying to do, we are the voice of communities, we are voice of startups in terms of trying to protect the revenue of those startups, trying to make their life easier. For example, like regulation just came like 6 months ago for those startups in specific industry. I don't want to mention which one. So they need to pay 250,000 Saudi riyal, each of them. So however, this kind of decision actually it's resulting in affecting those startups badly because they cannot offer to pay this amount in the beginning to get the license. So this kind of communities and kind of behavior we're trying to voice over to the regulator and each specific industry.
Okay, so in the point that I'm hearing you make is about ensuring again that regulation is business friendly, startup friendly, and takes into account the kinds of challenges and needs that startup companies in particular have. Albert, can you bring maybe another perspective on this as well? We were talking a little bit about also the regulation space, which seems to be your focus, and where do you think that the government needs to focus in terms of regulation that is supportive of startups and SMEs?
Sure. So basically, the role of the government is to be an enabler in that case. By being an enabler of new kind of services, whether they are digital or offline, we are dynamizing the overall economy. You have to think that in other industries, not in the financial industries, that innovation or enabling from certain governments happen, and this has dynamized a lot the economy. You have to think in the US, for example, the role of Uber or ride-sharing services, how much they have dynamized the economy that now even people that it's almost about to get retired with a low pension they can have a complementary salary, and at the end, these people will spend buying goods from the country, so this obviously will contribute to the overall economy. In the financial industry, we were lacking that. Regulators were seeing as defendants of the main banking players. But luckily that has changed. And you can have, as an example, for example, what happened in the UK. Even within the government, you have different entities that regulate different things. You have the Monetary Authority. In the UK, in that case, they had the Financial Services Authority, which was a huge organization that then, whenever fintech started to boom, they split it and they created a dedicated authority for this kind of new financial services to regulate them. But I think the most important role in the UK and what happened is that the CMA, which is the responsible for regulate the market competence, was truly believer that by adding new competitors into that industry, that would be the truly enabler of dynamism in the whole overall economy. So it was a perfect, let's say, the perfect storm, making these two organizations, the Monetary Authority and the Market Competence Authority, to collide into a single proposition, forcing, first of all, lowering the level of regulation, and in order to facilitate new firms to contribute with new, let's say, business models that might sound a bit crazy at the beginning. In the past, I had the experience of founding a fintech startup back in 2010 when even the word fintech didn't exist. And when we went, it was in Barcelona, and when we went to the regulator explaining which was the business model, which at the end we were doing foreign exchange between companies instead of having to go to the bank, they said that what we were trying to build was completely illegal, makes no sense. And by this time, the UK was already looking forward on which will be the next step for them into the economy, and we went to the UK. In 6 months, we were approved, and we were given a passport to operate throughout Europe. And now you all know companies like TransferWise, Revolut, and they are all built on the same approach. So I think the regulator has to think on that. And something that is really critical, and I want to introduce here, because I think we haven't talked that much during all the sessions, is around the concept, and that's something global, around open banking. So we can only, and that's something that is fully responsibility of the regulator, we have to enable the access to information. If you enable access to information, you will allowing the creation of new kind of services which might not be financial services. And in the case for SMEs, I just put an example. In the UK now, you have even special, you can call them fintechs or non-fintechs, where are companies specialized in offering a very dedicated service to SMEs to automate the tax filing for them. So without access to all your bank accounts into a single place, without having access to all your account receivables or account payables into a single place, that is a service that currently is not feasible. So if you have, and what we were mentioned before, especially in early stages, but mid companies or small companies that don't have the financial literacy to perform these kind of tasks, you are saving two problems. The lack of the knowledge to perform these tasks, and obviously saving them time, making them more efficient, and making them use the proper time in build their business. That is what they know to do better.
Great. There's a couple of themes that I pull out of what you just said, and the first is linked to the regulatory space that we were just talking about, is leaving the space open to innovate, right? That's keeping the space open for innovation. And the second is access to information. And that's an interesting theme. It comes up quite a bit in some of our discussions with governments, in that access to public information actually creates business opportunities, which can then be capitalized by small firms. So that's a really interesting space as well. And I think coming back to also your model and where we started, along with these two themes, brings up the question, which is what I wanted to close on before we go to questions, which is, where do we see emerging trends coming? So in terms of things like having open access to data and the kind of opportunities that brings, in terms of the models for provision of services, of provision through platforms versus direct one-on-one delivery, what kind of themes do you see emerging? I'll go to Ahmed first, in terms of what do you see coming in the future?
So we're seeing a lot of supply in terms of financial financing equity and as an investor. So as an investor, it used to be 10 years ago when the ecosystem started developing, people were quite desperate for investors, for equity investors. But nowadays, every startup has a few investors who are interested in it. So a question that keeps popping up in the last year or so is that, what are you offering? Are you just offering financial support, or are you also offering value-added support? In that case, we're seeing many investors looking to add more value to the startups. And this value can come in different forms. In our case, we're looking to support the companies at scale. So what does supporting them at scale mean? It means designing a program that a batch of companies that we have invested in and recently can get the same curriculum and the same agenda, learn, and not only learn theoretically what it means to, for example, to do search engine optimization or social media marketing, but also implement it in a way that's unique to that specific startup. There's a lot of advice that's too generic and it doesn't apply to every single startup, and it's a case-by-case basis. If we don't support the companies on a case-by-case basis and we give generic advice, then that advice is as good as useless. It's not helping the companies grow. And the goal is to help the companies grow and help these people achieve the target that they set for themselves, which is, I have a dream of setting up a company and I need the support all the support that I can, whether it's financial and non-financial. So we're seeing more people moving from jobs, they're moving towards starting their own company. They lack some knowledge in terms of how to support the company, how to set up the company. What investors do in this day and age is that they help bridge the gap as quickly as possible between what they know, what the startup founder knows, and what is the best practice. So we've seen a lot of accelerators in the last couple of years trying to bridge the gap within 3-4 months and getting these startups up and running and saving them time and money that they would have. You can spend a lot of time finding this information at Google, but instead of 4 months to get up and running, you'll probably take 4 years to get up and running. So finding structured programs that are designed to help the companies grow and being very selective about what you offer and at what stage, and adding value is the most important thing. Offering support is not enough. Offering support that matters is the most important thing.
Would any of the other panelists, would you like to comment on emerging trends or what you see coming in the future in Saudi Arabia or more generally? Would you like to comment?
Yeah. Of course, the trend does affect, for example, in Badr program, we have plenty of non-financial services, the services we provide. So the answer is yes, our services get affected by the trends. For example, I remember that we used to provide, and we still provide a personal accountant for each startups to make sure and to ensure that the statement and the financial statement is well written and well documented, because when they get to the investment rounds, we have everything set. So with the shared economy movement, so it's appeared to have platforms that provide these services online. And I remember that there is a startup in Saudi called, is started by a Saudi, and most of the startups going to use this platform. So yes, so we had to really go and focus on new service that serve the startups. So yes, of course, the trends does affect the service we provide. For example, we had to change our model in business development because the business development model that we are using at Badr is not scalable. We used to serve 20 companies. Nowadays, we have a mandate to serve 600 companies. So we had to change it, and we decided to go and establish an advisory board for each startup we have, so they will actually take care of this role as business development. And this is because the entrepreneurs themselves, they get sophisticated. I remember when I joined BADR program, and this was in 2010, I was a business development myself, coming from IDF, so I was a business development. The crowd of startups that time, 2010, was not sophisticated as we have them right now. Nowadays, when you walk into 8 branches of BADR program around the kingdom, you will find McKinsey, ex-BCG, ex-Ta'deen, ex-Aramco, PHE holders. They are the founder of those startups. So the sophistication level of those startups is different right now. So we cannot do actually the business development we used to do. Nowadays, they actually a source of knowledge for us. So we have to create new services that can serve this segment, and this movement happened in Saudi Arabia.
Well, I totally agree with Ustad Nawaf, and I want to build on that as well, is that let's say technical trends will increase performance, increase efficiency, will provide a better opportunity by just looking at the infrastructure and connectivity. By providing connectivity and fiber optics to remote areas, we will be enabling more women in remote areas to open their own businesses at home. Just providing that connectivity to a woman, you will give her an access to worldwide market, either from upskilling to communities to ideas. So definitely the new trends will be an enabler. But the word trend itself sometimes worries me. Worldwide, SMEs and startups are becoming a trend. Becoming a business owner is becoming a trend. If that is the case, being a business owner to follow the trend, then here is where a problem that we should look at. We should always look at the sustainability of such trend, and not as we are living in the 4th industrial revolution. It's just a matter of time till the 5th comes out. So what are we going to do then? How are we going to sustain our innovation for our startups and our ideas to be sustainable on a long run? So going into that world needs dedication, commitment, sweat. So if we're not in that field for a purpose and for a value, then again, it's a trend.
Albert, did you want to add anything before we go to questions?
Sure. I think that by doing a proper use of technologies that we have today, for example, as Strands, we're experts on machine learning, and we're able to offer this kind of tailored services that we're mentioning before at a global scale. So in other industries, or even, for example, in private banking, people now tend not to rely on their personal advisor. They prefer to use their mobile phone, even if their assets under management that they have are worth millions and millions of dollars. They prefer to do it remotely from their smartphone, and technology allows us to do that. So I think the trend and based on the current topic around SMEs is that companies, especially these new generations of people, that yes, there is a trend that they prefer to be their own boss rather than work for a third party. All of them are fully digitally native. So we need to adapt and offer these kind of highly tailored solutions to them. And banks are in the right situation to do that, because there is already a trust established between the firm and the SME. We just need to enable the bank with this technology to provide and go beyond the financial services I mentioned before. Just some examples. Here we are as well invited by the SME Finance Forum, part of the IFC. And within that community, we are already partnered with MasterCard, and together with MasterCard, we are developing new solutions for SMEs going beyond banking. One of the examples that we're bringing into market is the possibility that a bank can enable any retailer within their customers to set up an e-commerce store right away from the online banking. So you as a retailer, you just log into your bank and you can really easily in 4 steps set up one e-commerce store and start selling. And the power of technology, what allows us to do beyond financial services is that as soon as you start selling, banks that not only work with SME bank customers, but they also have retail customers, can utilize the data of the retail customers to provide insights to the retailers, telling them in which areas of the city you should open a new shop in order to sell more for the kind of service that you are providing. So I think we are starting to reach this moment where banks are not afraid anymore in stepping in these services. Other players like Google have been utilizing the data for so many years, and banks have really, really powerful data that it's being underutilized. And I think now it's just the proper moment to go with that.
Great, so we'll go to questions. Just to sum up, maybe try to sum up, there was a really rich discussion, some of what we heard. I tried to sum it up sort of in 3 areas. We talked a bit about what kind of services are needed, and I think some themes emerged in terms of the nature of those services changing over the life cycle of a firm, which is to be expected. There was then a few things said about how those services really need to be tailored and customized in order to be effective. And then in terms of how they're delivered, we talked quite a bit about that actually. And a few themes in terms of how those services can be delivered through platforms is something that was brought up a few times. And also about possibly embedding those services along with financial services maybe can actually be very effective. Especially capitalizing on the wealth of data that financial service providers have, and then using technology like machine learning in terms of being able to customize the services and the data that's used. In terms of the role of government, there seems to be a consensus about the enabler role. Dima, you mentioned infrastructure as well, but there was a lot of discussion about making sure that regulations were business-friendly, startup-friendly, and also that we have a level playing field, open data that can actually enable business. So jumping off of that to some of the questions, I think there's a few questions here related to how services are provided and how they can be effectively provided. So how is technology changing what can be done, going beyond financial support? There was a question, I saw it somewhere, it seems to have gone. How to choose the best fintech or incubator that would, I presume, most effectively provide those kinds of, the kinds of services that are needed. So can we take maybe these 2 questions in terms of how is technology actually helping to enable the provision of those services, and how do we evaluate a fintech or an incubator that actually is the best, most suitable to an SME, to a startup. So maybe can we look at that in terms of how do we look at incubators and accelerators in terms of how are they effectively providing services to startups, and what is the use of technology, the role of technology in that?
Okay, then I'll start with that one.
It's open
Yes.
to whoever wants to jump in.
Okay. So I think, again, technology is a tool. It's like any other tool that you use to implement something. So when innovation, for instance, we look at fire. How did fire start? By rubbing in 2 sticks. These sticks are tools. So technology, at the end of the day, is a tool. And yes, it can help in forming the idea or your dream into reality. It can give you access to the market much easily. It can get you access to data. Data is a very big, as you have mentioned, and the panel has mentioned, data is a big factor when it comes to innovation. So access, technology will provide you that access, as well as artificial intelligence that will help you in ideation and taking the right decisions. And the more we talk about the kinds of technology, the more we can't. We'll continue talking about it for days and days because technology is evolving, it's innovating, but the thing that I want to leave you with is it's a tool. So let's treat it as a tool and as the, let's say, the core or the base of any business.
Would you like to comment on choosing an accelerator or incubator, Nawaf or Ahmed? How does
Actually,
how does a startup know that they? Oh, please go ahead.
So I want to add a bit. We've had some specific cases where the technology helped startups grow, and it was basically to save them time. By going on social media, for example, and connecting with the right people who are subject matter experts. Twitter, for example, allows you to connect to people who aren't your friends. They're not within your network, but you can ask them a question and hopefully they can answer. You can ask, for example, if you're starting a fintech project, you can ask someone who started a fintech project in the region and hopefully they can answer that question. On another hand, they also enable communities to foster and communicate more often than they would. At 500, for example, we have Slack channels. It allows all of our entrepreneurs to ask questions and get these answers within a day. So instead of wasting time and trying to find the right answer from different people, you can ask a question. We've had some of the weirdest questions we've had was, how can I set up a call center or a virtual call center? And that doesn't really, it's not something that everyone has a knowledge about. But there are some subject matter experts helping companies set call centers and making sure that these call centers are providing value. So we managed to connect them with someone who had that knowledge and basically help them set up that call center within a day or two. So in summary, technology can help you find the right answers that you're looking for very quickly and very effectively, helps you foster and tap into communities that you're not really part of, or enable you to be engaged in communities that you're part of currently.
So Ahmed, staying with you, there's a question on, I don't know, it's disappeared, maybe that's our signal that we need to end. But there was a question, I'm not sure I quite understood it, but it seemed to be saying, how do we actually reconcile SMEs' needs as they state them with the fact that they don't have management information systems about their companies and don't necessarily know their own firms very well, or maybe how do you deal with the fact that maybe SMEs or startups don't know what they so can you relate that to your point on technology? Are there situations where, as Dima was saying, technology shouldn't be the end, it should be a means to something? So do you encounter that, or what is your advice on that?
I mean, it's difficult to support someone who doesn't know what they don't know. So there are people who know what they don't know, and there are people who don't know what they don't know. And it's your role to switch between a life coach and an advisor and take off this hat and put on that hat. And you have to ask these questions, like, you're gonna develop more expertise as an investor or as an enabler, and basically talk to them and find out the gaps that they don't know about. And you're gonna find some really interesting personalities. Some people don't take feedback even though that they're going into the wrong direction. Some people are taking feedback and they're going in the right direction. So you have to customize depending on that personality. There is no one size that fits all. And you have to help them open up a window of knowledge and see where the knowledge lies in and where they lack that knowledge. And it's your job to connect them with that knowledge, whether it's yourself that you know, or whether it's someone that can help them achieve what they're looking to achieve.
Thank you. Nawab, there's a question looking at incubators and maybe competition within the incubator space. So there's a question here for you on whether Badr competes with STC. I have to confess I don't know what STC is. I hope that you do. And other incubators, and asking about your model, about whether you take a controlling share, do you influence day-to-day management. So could you speak a little bit to that question about the role of Badr?
Yeah. The STC is the Saudi telecom company of Saudi Arabia.
Could I ask you to get closer to the microphone?
STC is the Saudi telecom company. And about the competition, I don't think we are competing with anyone because we are collaborating with everyone. Actually, we are working with incubators hand by hand because it is a platform, and we are working with incubators in Saudi and in the Middle East and North Africa. We are working with incubators in US, in Europe, in Russia, in China. So we call it another version of incubation is B2B, so incubator to incubators. So there is another network of incubation that they are working together. We have a network that we gather together, we brainstorm, and about Badr program is owned by the government actually, is owned by the Saudi Arabia R&D Center, is owned by King Abdulaziz Science of Technology. And actually we are linked to the R&D labs. We have verticals, we have 8 locations, and we got the mandate this year to build a new network of incubators within Institute of CACS, of our R&D Center. So we are different. We have 2 kinds in Badr. There is 2 kinds of incubation actually. There is something called research-led incubation, and there is something called founder-led incubators. So we are playing role in both verticals, and incubation is different than accelerator, is different than co-work space. I believe it is a business development tools, is a government role. I believe is very difficult, and it needs experience, and it's there since 60 years in US. We have nowadays the president of NBIA, which is the National Incubation Network in US, now visiting the kingdom. So this is different. So there is no competition. Actually, there is collaboration, and we need to do a lot of this.
So this brings us back to the role of the government, in this case where it's investing in incubation, and also, as you were mentioning, choosing certain sectors, having certain verticals. So there's a question, that might be something we want to discuss a little bit more in terms of how that can be effective and what lessons we have in terms of ensuring that it is effective and following the market or enabling the market rather than being supply driven. So I think that's a good topic for discussion if anyone wants to come back in on it. But related to that, there's a question for you, Dima, about how MISC can support startup businesses aligned with the sectors in Vision 2030. So that's a good question, is should you be following Vision 2030? Is that a government document, or do NGOs in the private sector need to be informed by that or motivated by it, and in what way?
So talking about MISC specifically, we play 2 roles in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. We are enablers. Our objective is to create a world-class ecosystem. So we do not incubate, we do not accelerate, we do not provide upskilling. What we do is we are the glue that glues all those resources together. As Al-Ustad Nawaf just mentioned, that there's a difference between incubation, acceleration, and co-working spaces, and even ideation and education from a very early age. What we want to do is that we have identified the value chain of innovation per se, from sparking that interest of thinking of an idea and thinking differently and outside the box, to providing the right platforms to make those ideas come to life, and then elevating them to become businesses. So not only we work with children, but also we work with VCs and creating that VC community and awareness. And all of that we do through partners. So what we do is we capitalize on the resources that are already available in the country. We have great partnership with Badr, we have great partnership with CACS, we have great partnership with all the ecosystem. And we have great partnership with global players like 500 startups, which we bring in those opportunities for our youth to complete that value chain and plug them in that value chain. So that is the role of MISC. Now, how do we support, or how do we align with Vision 2030? Definitely we do, but we are not limited to. So we do fill in the gaps to expedite that growth and achieving the Vision 2030 by, for instance, looking at sectors that most of the incubators and accelerators are not looking at, like the creative industry, tourism, hospitality, which is becoming big in the country, but still we don't see those programs that will enable entrepreneurship in. So here is where we're launching an accelerator for creative industry, and how can artists become or commercialize their either their art, either their culinary art, or all the spectrum of the creative industry. So this is where we're linking to 2030, but also we are linking to a global demand, which is the SDGs, the United Nations SDGs. So we are running several programs and we, as I said in the beginning, we do believe in purpose-driven innovation. And therefore, we have chosen the SDGs to become our objective, where we are ideating and we are moving the mindsets of our youth to start ideating and coming up with solutions that will benefit the United Nations SDGs.
Thank you. I think I may not have done the question justice, because they were also asking specifically on media production and entertainment. Are you involved in that space?
Oh, definitely, of course. MISC's priority areas are four. And of course, in all of these four is enabling youth and providing them the opportunities in four main areas: education, digital media, arts and culture, technology and science. And under that is several upskilling programs, opportunities for either startups or for youth to provide that demand and those manpower that the country needs to achieve Vision 2030. For instance, last year the beneficiaries from our programs from the upskilling only was 9,000. And the ratio of the number of youth that have been employed or got promotions or created jobs are 99.5%. Most of the data scientists that we have graduated last year were recruited in STC, for instance. So we do look at all the cycle and the journey for the youth from joining an initiative to landing on a job or creating their own business.
Thank you, Dima. The last question that we haven't answered is also for you, actually. Is in terms of what MISC can do or is doing to support home-based businesses in identifying platforms to market their goods and services. Is that something that you're working on?
Well, not necessarily we are focusing on that area. As I said, we're providing the opportunities for them, meaning that connecting them to the right investors, providing the training programs to upskill them on how to move their home businesses online, providing them with the support of connecting them to our partners from incubation like Bader and like others that can provide them that support. So we are not reinventing the wheel. We're trying to capitalize on other resources. We're not focusing on that sector, but we're enabling them and providing them services.
Which makes a lot of sense since there's so many existing platforms, but sometimes there's a gap in terms of the capability of a small home-based startup or business and their ability to actually access those platforms. So that's
we're actually in, you reminded me of something. In October, we're launching a program of a training it's a training program for startups on how to use technology in a productive way. Especially when it comes to programming for creating their own e-commerce platform, connecting to other platforms, and so on. So these are the services that we can provide.
Great, thank you. So just to the rest of the panelists, based on this discussion, did you have any additional thoughts you wanted to share that emerged from the discussion? Awad, Albert, Ahmed?
Yes, just to recap and give consciousness to all the audiences. We now need to switch from know your customer to understand your customer, and only by offering this kind of new solutions or services whether it's directly from banks or initiatives like the ones we have heard today. It's the only way to better properly understand the SMEs. And as soon as we understand SMEs, even it will be profitable for the financial institutions as well, because you will be able to cross-sell and upsell more tailored solutions. You will be able to define new financial solutions that they don't exist today, but new companies or new startups or people with new skills will need from you. And I think it's super relevant, and it's a global trend. It's not only here in Saudi Arabia, but that's happening everywhere.
Just a last remark. We are a very vibrant society. 70% of us are under the age of 35. We are very tech savvy. We are top 10 in online penetration, the first when it comes to Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube consumption, but again, we're consumers. So I would say that we have to move from consumers to producers, and from job seekers to job creators, and this is the time. This is the glorious time that we're living in. So I would say to each individual in this room is this is your chance. So just go to Miras today.
Great. Well, thanks to the panelists. This was a really rich discussion. I think, when we talk about non-financial services, as I said in the beginning, term of what it's not, because it's so varied and rich. It's so many different things that need to be provided, and I think that this discussion really brought that out. I think some of my concluding thoughts are just based on the discussion. These services, they're essential, absolutely, to success. They need to be efficient. They need to be delivered using data. They need to be data-driven. They need to be tailored. And more possibly embedded along with other services is another opportunity. So thank you so much for this session. It was great talking to you all, and thanks everyone for staying to this last session, and we know we're standing between you and lunch, so thank you.
Thank you indeed. I'd like to invite Mr. Humam to thank our panelists and moderator. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in a minute or two, we will have Mr. Humam Hashim delivering the closing remarks. إذن سيقدم لنا السيد همام هاشم بعد دقيقة من الآن الكلمة الختامية في هذا المؤتمر. أستاذ همام تفضل.
طبعا السيدات والسادة الكرام، بداية أو في الختام، في ختام مؤتمرنا الأول للتمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة الذي عقد على مدى اليومين السابقين، أود أن أتوجه بالشكر لحكومتنا الرشيدة، حكومة سيدي خادم الحرمين الشريفين الملك سلمان بن عبد العزيز يحفظه الله، وسمو ولي العهد الأمير محمد بن سلمان بن عبد العزيز حفظه الله، لتوجيهاتهما السامية ودعمهم المستمر للقطاع المالي والاستثماري في المملكة، ولا سيما لقطاع المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة ولبرنامج كفالة. كما أتقدم بالشكر الجزير لكل من ساهم في إقامة هذه المبادرة من أصحاب المعالي الوزراء وأصحاب السعادة وشركائنا من الرعاة والداعمين لنمو قطاع المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة فيما يخدم مصلحة الاقتصاد في المملكة. أقيم هذا المؤتمر بتوفيق من الله سبحانه وتعالى في إطار سعي برنامج كفالة والهيئة العامة للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة الدؤوب للمشاركة الفاعلة في تحقيق أهداف رؤية المملكة 2030 في دعم المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة ومشاركتها بشكل بناء في مساهمة الناتج القومي الإجمالي، واضعين دعم المواطن والمستثمر على رأس أولوياتنا، وذلك من خلال مساهمة البرنامج بتوفير الضمانات اللازمة لجهات التمويل المرخص لها في المملكة بهدف مساعدة المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة ورواد ورائدات الأعمال في الحصول على التمويل اللازم لتنمية أنشطتهم والمساهمة الفاعلة في اقتصاد هذا الوطن المعطاء. وضع برنامج كفالة خطة استراتيجية تعمل على زيادة تمكين المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة عبر برامج تتوائم مع احتياجات الملاك، زيادة أعداد وفاعلية الشراكات الرئيسية من البنوك وشركات التمويل المرخص لها في العمل في المملكة، العمل على تحديث آليات العمل بحيث يكون البرنامج قريبا لكل مستفيد، العمل ضمن أطر حوكمة وشفافية واضحة لترفع الثقة من جميع الجهات العاملة مع البرنامج. خلال هذين اليومين تم مناقشة عدة محاور رئيسية، منها أفضل الممارسات في الخدمة المصرفية للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، توضيح دور البرنامج وبرامج الضمان للقطاعات المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، ثورة التكنولوجيا المالية ودورها في تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، توسيع الحلول التمويل للشركات الصغيرة والمتوسطة من قبل شركات التمويل المرخص لها للعمل في المملكة وآلية عملها في دول العالم، التمويل الرأسمالي والشركات الناشئة، رأس المال الجريء، المستثمر، كيفية العلاقة بين المستثمر والملاك، التمويل الخاص بعدة قطاعات مثل القطاعات السياحية والقطاعات الصناعية وسلاسل الإمداد، الخدمات الغير مالية للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. زملائي العاملين في البحوث في برنامج كفالة قاموا بوضع مختصر للنقاط التي تم مناقشتها في خلال المؤتمر، واسمحوا لي بسردها باللغة الإنجليزية. On day one, the first item we have discussed the necessity and the need to collect and validate the data from SMEs. Each SME had its unique character. We cannot work with all SME in the same uniform. So we have to tailor our products from financing and from guarantee program to match our customer demand with the need of the SME industry. SME is not a risky business. They are demanding. We have to fulfill their demands. And if we fill it in the right direction, they will really contribute more and more to the economy, and they will do it in the right way. So we need to think back again, win-win between the banking and SME. How do we improve the relationship together? So the rule of the game is flexibility. Working in a legend system that it does not work with a flexible solution, it will not help a healthy and young economy. Guarantee scheme, actually, it's a life journey. It's not one time you take it and you survive. So you take it at the beginning and you sustain with it, and the guarantee scheme must read and understand the relationship, evaluate, analyze, and go forward. So it is, as we say, it's a long life journey. It's like a marriage. We have to live together with the SME owner. Fintech offer multi-services to solve each financing and issuance of financing SMEs businesses. By supporting SME liquidity, will increase the economy's impact, and it will have a direct impact, but you have to do it in the right time. Being late, it will not serve the SME. You have to do it on the appropriate time. And when you do a discounting and as a financing, you should be not, excuse my language, not so selfish in terms of taking the margin to your own self. You need to keep a bar to the SME owners, so that also you support them to survive and come back again to your business, and you survive and they survive together. And that need to be done with the appropriate pricing, with the appropriate terms and terminology between the contracts you are doing. So contracting in the right way and assuring the relationship done in a mutual manner is quite important. Banks and non-banks are not competing. They are completing to each other. So they are complying to each other. Guarantee scheme is not competing. Guarantee scheme is providing an insurance to the banks and non-bank schemes so that they can expand their businesses with comfort and in longer terms. A range of non-bank MBFI competing with banks by providing alternative solution to SMEs. The role of venture capital and angel investors in expanding SME sectors to financing in the kingdom. As a fact, there is 11 venture capital, as we heard today, available in Saudi Arabia, and they are underserved. We need to see how banks and MBFIs can serve this young organization so that they will have a real impact in our economy. Supporting sectors such as tourism, industrial, filmmaking, entertainment, these are young industries in Saudi Arabia. We need to provide them a new support, which is ideas outside the box. Normally, when we do a business, we look for visibility analysis, we look for the history of the performance, etc. For a filmmaking, you cannot do it like this. There is no history for a filmmaking. You are looking for something which is creating. You have a unique uniform. For tourism, you have to do something totally outside the box. We never had a tourism industry in Saudi Arabia before. Now we are developing something new. We need to create really a new industry, new uniform, and that will create really a new business for the banking and non-banking business. Simultaneously, we need to think or to enable the young graduate chaps and girls whom they are coming from the universities, and they have a lot of knowledge. They have worked in this type of industry. We have to give them the empowerment so that they can work forward and understand the SME owners. Okay. Now I'll back again to the closing, and it will be in Arabic, if you don't mind. Okay? ختاما لابد لنا في هذه اللحظات أن يتم الشكر للزملاء والزميلات الذين عملوا ليلا نهارا لإنجاح هذه المبادرة الأولى لبرنامج كفالة، بما فيها من تحديات بدعم من الرعاة الكرام من مجلس إدارة الموقر وهيئة المنشآت والبنك الدولي. ونعدكم بأن هذه الهمم الطموحة التي تعانق عباب السماء ستستمر في بناء النجاحات ومواجهة التحديات متابعين ما وصلنا إليه اليوم. سوف نأخذ نصائحكم وملاحظاتكم بحول الله تعالى على محمل الجد، وسوف ننشرها على موقع البرنامج، على أمل أن نلقاكم في المؤتمر الثاني لتمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة في العام القادم، كما صدرت التوجيهات لعقده إن شاء الله بنفس الفترة العام القادم. ولكم منا أطيب التحيات والأماني بالتوفيق والنجاح. شكرا لكم.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذ همام، وفعلا نتمنى لهذا المؤتمر الاستمرارية والاستدامة والنجاح لهذا العام وللأعوام القادمة بإذنه تعالى. إذا أيضا نستمع لسعادة الأستاذ وليد المرشد رئيس مؤسسة التمويل الدولية في السعودية ليتحدث لنا أيضا عن الكلمة الختامية في هذا المؤتمر.
أيها الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أود أن أعرب عن شكري وتقديري لبرنامج كفالة تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة وزملائنا في مجموعة البنك الدولي على هذا التنظيم المتميز، وكذلك أشكر سعادة الوكيل الدكتور فهد الشثري ورئيس مجلس إدارة برنامج كفالة، والأخ همام هاشم المدير العام. أسعدني شخصيا ما لقاه مؤتمرنا من إقبال من مجموعة متنوعة وكبيرة من المتحدثين والمشاركين الذين كان لهم دور فرصة مناقشة التحديات والفرص، وأبرزها التوجهات في قطاع تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. كانت هذه اليومين حافلين بالنقاش، حيث حظينا بمشاركة 400 مشارك تقريبا من البنوك المحلية والدولية والمؤسسات التمويلية غير المصرفية والهيئات الحكومية. وكان من أهم النقاط التي تطرق لها مؤتمرنا أفضل الممارسات في قطاع البنوك لتمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، والتي أعطتنا نظرة عن كثب على التجارب البنوك المحلية والدولية وفي توفير أفضل التمويل للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. وشاركنا في ذلك شركة ائتمان من مصر ومن تركيا. أما الجلسة الختامية التي كانت الأمس عن التكنولوجي المالية، والتي أظهرت إمكانية العظمى التي تمكن من تقديم التكنولوجيا والابتكارات المالية التي تساعد المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة على تنفيذ تلك. تعتبر المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة من أولويات مجموعة البنك الدولي في المملكة العربية السعودية، لما لها من دور هام في توفير فرص العمل، فيصل على المستوى العالمي إلى 70%، وكذلك تنويع القاعدة الاقتصادية الإنتاجية للدولة وتحفيز الإبداع والابتكار. كما أود التنويه بشكل مختصر عن الجهود التي قامت بها مؤسسة التمويل الدولية مع دعم المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، وذلك خلال التعاون مع البنوك المحلية، حيث وقعت عدة اتفاقيات مع تلك البنوك تقديم خدمات استشارية وتشتمل متابعة التنفيذ حتى يتم تحقيق النتائج، وتصل مدتها تقريبا إلى حوالي عامين. وكان التعاون في هذا المجال أولا مع بنك الرياض والبنك الأول ومصرف الراجحي وبنك البلاد. وكانت هذه الاتفاقيات لدعم جهود البنوك في خدمة المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة وإنشاء إدارات متخصصة في البنوك بذلك، إضافة إلى مساعدة البنوك في تطوير المنتجات والخدمات المصرفية وإدارة المخاطر، وكذلك الائتمان المخصص لخدمة المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة وتلبية احتياجاتهم. وكانت نتائج هذه التعاون ارتفاع محفظة القروض لدى تلك البنوك وانخفاض مخصص الديون المشكوك فيها إلى حوالي 1%. فكما سمعنا أمس بنك الرياض حقق المركز الأول في محفظة الإقراض. وقامت كذلك المؤسسة تقييم لإدارة المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة في بنك ساب والبنك الاستثمار. وكان هناك تعاون مع المعهد المالي التابع لمؤسسة النقد العربي السعودي، تنظيم ندوات ودورات تدريبية متخصصة للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. وأود أن أبين أن أهم النتائج الممكن استخلاصها من تجارب مؤسسة التمويل الدولية مع البنوك السعودية التي تمتد إلى أكثر من 10 سنوات أن نسبة مخاطر الإقراض للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة تعتبر ضمن الحدود المقبولة، خاصة مع إنشاء إدارات متخصصة وتدريب الموارد البشرية المعنية لرفع قدرتها المهنية. ستواصل مجموعة البنك الدولي شراكتها مع السعودية في طريقها نحو الإصلاح والتطور من خلال العمل على المواضيع المتعلقة بالسياسات وإصلاح القطاع المالي وتنمية المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة. وفي الختام أود أن أشيد بالجهود التي تبذلها الحكومة على إيجاد البنية المناسبة لدعم المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة في المملكة العربية السعودية. شكراً.
شكرا جزيلا. إذا بهذا أيها الإخوة والأخوات الكرام نأتي لختام مؤتمرنا هذا. سعدنا بكم وبمشاركتكم الفاعلة، وعلى أمل أن نلقاكم بإذنه تعالى في المؤتمر القادم في السنة القادمة كما ذكر الأستاذ همام. إذا على دروب الخير نلتقي إن شاء الله، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.